Society of African Missions and reports to their headquarters at Blackrock Road in Cork City, Ireland. The relationship between him and the order has had its difficulties, but his superiors had always supported him. That support continued. Father Lynch would return to New York. The order would pay his legal costs, but every effort was to be made to avoid a public trial. The African missions did not want this kind of publicity.
When I was being tried, convicted and condemned by the media, particularly in Ireland, they had a very simple question for me, which was analogous to that which my father asked. Bernard, did you do it? And I said, no, I did not. So the response, we're with you. We stand by you.
The support of the gay community and a coalition of clergy in New York was not quite as low-key. A media counterattack was launched.
We are in a time of fear in our city and society. Times of fear become times of witch hunts, demagoguery, and inquisitions. Father Bernard is being caught up in a witch hunt.
There were immediate charges of conspiracy and collusion between the Archdiocese of New York, the Bronx DA's office, and the FBI.
I picked up the phone and I called into the television station just to say, Father Bernard is a friend of mine, and I do happen to know that he is not, as it seems, a fugitive at large. And the television network, I don't know who I was speaking with, a woman said to me, well, who are you? And I said, well, I am Sister Karen Colleen, and I've been a friend and a colleague with Father Bernard. And I said to her, in fact, tell me, where did you get your information? And she said, from a spokesperson at the Archdiocese of New York.
The Archdiocesan office block on First Avenue was known as the powerhouse during Cardinal Spellman's reign. Nobody's thought fit to change it. Attorney Michael Kennedy was very conscious of that when he started to prepare his defense.
It seemed to me that part of my responsibility, not only as a lawyer but as a Catholic, was to try to head off what seemed to me to be a very fateful direction this case was going. I sent first a letter and then spoke personally with an emissary of the Cardinal here, suggesting to him that it was in no one's interest, least of all the Catholic Church's interest, that this matter go forward. They made it very clear to me that they were not going to interfere in this prosecution whatsoever.
Your Eminence, why did the Archdiocese not support Father Bernard Lynch during his trial in the Bronx?
No comment on Father Bernard Lynch.
Later, Michael Kennedy tried to get access to some of the archdiocesan files.
We knew then that the homophobes from Mount St. Michael's had gone to the Archdiocese, and I wanted to get that correspondence to find out what, if any, activities the Archdiocese had with reference to the bringing of these particular charges. They immediately got their lawyer, who's a very fine, powerful, prominent lawyer here in town, to move to quash the subpoenas. They said under no circumstances do they want Kennedy to have access to those files, and indeed I never did get access to those files.
I will not comment.
My religious superiors and religious superiors of other communities here, together with nuns and priests and other personages in some kind of ecclesiastical offices, did seek, as well as my attorneys, to have contact and to solicit support from the officialdom of New York Archdiocese, and to no avail.
No comment on Father Bernard Lynch.
Here I was, literally left hanging out on a limb by those at one level. for whom and to whom I had given so much of my life. I did not ask to come to New York City. The Archdiocese of New York asked my provincial superior, the late Father Lawrence Carr, to send me to serve in New York. And I gave New York of my best. Not just the gay Catholic community.
After voluntarily returning to New York, Father Lynch was formally arrested and charged with the crimes at the Bronx Supreme Court on Thursday, June 23rd, 1988. The administrative judge in charge of the entire Bronx Supreme Court would try the case himself. Justice Burton B. Roberts, a former district attorney, is the stuff that novels are made of. It was to be 10 months before the case would go to trial, 10 of the longest months in Father Bernard Lynch's life. In February 1989, Schaeffer's attorney lodged a civil claim for $5 million damages.
$5 million is like, it's like a joke figure. $5 million is such an exorbitant sum. It was just a sum. It was a figure to put in there. It could have been $250 million. It could have been $1 trillion. It's a sum that he picked at random. It wasn't something that I said, well, you know, I want $5 million from that man, because it's a joke. This little Irish priest is going to have $5 million. It's not even part of reality.
Father Lynch's defense team responded by issuing subpoenas to a number of Schaeffer's friends, including a former male lover. Schaeffer's lawyer immediately dropped the case.
I remember signing the papers to end that, and the reason I ended it was because, like I said, it could have looked like I was looking to make money off of this, which wasn't my goal. It wasn't my goal to be involved in this anyway, in any way.
That he's withdrawing.
In a final effort to get the case dismissed, Bob Kammer suggested that Father Lynch take a polygraph or lie detector test.
I subjected Father Lynch to a polygraph test, which was conducted by one of the leading polygraph experts in this country, who told me that he never holds back the key punch, as it were. His questions were very, very probing, and for a priest, any priest, to be questioned about any type of sexual activity at all, in view of the vows of celibacy and other ethos of priest, it may raise a question whether any priest could subject himself to a polygraph test. Here, Father Lynch passed with unhesitantly flying colors.
The lie detector test results and affidavits from a wide range of citizens, including the Episcopal Bishop of New York, Dr. Paul Moore, were submitted to the court on March 14th, and an application made for the dismissal of the charges. 8 days later, Justice Roberts refused. It was now clear that the case would go to trial. The trial opened on April 18th to a full media circus. Judge Roberts allowed cameras into the courtroom, but would not permit John Schaeffer to be filmed. All the networks were there.
Just another story about a dirty old man and a kid. And then you saw what really happened. It was mind-boggling.
What really happened, according to Sean Walsh, the prosecutor, was that Schaeffer had visited Father Lynch's apartment sometime in January of 1985 and had been propositioned by the priest, who said he would leave his order for Schaeffer. Father Lynch's defense counsel said Schaeffer was a highly disturbed young man. He'd never known his father. He came from a broken home and lived with his grandparents. According to the defense, Schaeffer had indeed been molested, but not by Father Lynch. The priest, said Michael Kennedy, was one of the few people who really cared for him. Schaeffer had been in the apartment in January of 1985, but it was he who had propositioned the priest and had been turned down.
Every TV station in town, radio stations, written press, and so on, we all had formed some opinions. You know, we all had heard the stories about, well, those priests, you know, who are celibate, ha, 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 and so on. I think there was a perception that a dirty old man had been caught, and let's hope they hang him. Now, that was the real perception, because, let's face it, in New York City, as a working journalist, you become cynical. It costs New York City so damn much money to bring someone to trial that they have to be very, very certain, as a rule, to spend all that money and the resources of the city to try and put someone away. We go in, the media goes in, I'm saying, generally speaking, assuming that most defendants are guilty. I mean, that is the reality.
The first holes started to appear in the prosecution case as they produced Special Agent Alan MacDonald. He admitted under cross-examination that he had not followed normal procedure in his questioning of John Schaefer. Normally 2 FBI men are present at all interviews.
It's a muffled experience to be so wrongly accused of something I just didn't do.
By the very first day when he gave it his very first interview, I think I began to really have second thoughts about my original prognosis. And as the trial wore on, as he talked more, and as the testimony began to bear his side out more and more, I began to have an enormous respect for this man's courage. I mean, what he was enduring with that kind of stoicism, that kind of calm, that kind of faith, that his faith would see him through.
The extraordinary and dramatic nature of the trial became clear on the second day. A letter was produced in court which John Schaefer had written to the district attorney. In it, he claimed he'd never had any intention of taking a case against the priest.
Schaefer, when confronted with the prospect of having to go to trial and having to give evidence in court and be cross-examined, cried out against the FBI and against the prosecution. You promised me this would never happen. You said there were all these other boys. Where are they? You promised I would not have to go to court, yet here I am. I don't want to go through this. See, John Schaefer was then caught in a dilemma of his own morality at this point.
That week was one that I told him verbally on the telephone and in person. I don't want to go through with this. I don't want to go through with this. I need this to slow down. I need to talk it out. It wasn't. It was like a big snowball that just all of, throw these facts at you, throw these facts at you. These are the type of questions they're going to ask you. This is how they're going to react. There's going to be a lot of reporters there. We're going to take you out. We're going to sneak you into the building. We're going to sneak you out of the building. We'll have the police stay with you so no one will bother you. If anybody calls up on the phone, you can just hang up on them. It was just all this information that I'm hearing, and now I had to deal with that. And so the day before the trial happened, they picked me up every day for these prep meetings. And the day before the trial, I got picked up in a car by Jim Clemente and Joe Gelfand, and we went into the city, and I said, this is the letter I wrote, and I can't believe, why won't Sean just listen to me? And I made them read it. And all Jim Clemente could scream at me was, well, you know, this has gone so far, and you have to stand up for what you believe in. You got to stand up for what you believe in. One of the things Jim Clemente kept trying to push on me was, well, you know, this happened to him, and he was able to, after 10 years, he saw that he saw this teacher that he had who had raped him, and he was able to bring him to justice afterwards. And it was such a great feeling because he was able to purge his soul and everything afterwards. In retrospect, I shouldn't have done this to please other people. I should have just stopped it because it wasn't a good thing for me.
Schaefer was persuaded to testify, and in the beginning was very confident on the stand. But as Michael Kennedy began to cross-examine him, he could not be certain even of the year in which the alleged molestation took place.
What I think of John Schaefer is that he's a sad person. He's a person who at the trial showed he has no internal being. He describes himself as living for the play, as an actor, living a role. But I don't want to sound as if I'm attacking John Schaefer. He was very badly victimized by the criminal justice system.
And that day I saw Al MacDonald when I got to the courtroom, and he calmed me down. And he wrote on this little piece of paper, Sir Galahad. And he handed it to me, and he said, this is the way you have to face this. It's gone far. There's no turning back now, and you just have to go forward with it and be. He quoted something from the Knights of the Round Table. And I still have this little piece of paper that says Sir Galahad on it, and he made me feel good about it, whereas everybody else was trying to push it through.
I found from the distance of a lawyer, the young John Schaefer to be a very complicated man. He was an actor, a very natural, gifted actor, and could develop a persona or play a role quite well. I think that he found playing that role somewhat exciting and extravagant at first, but when it became difficult, that is, when he had to face us in court,